We're in part 7 of lesson 92, and we are focusing on the perfect tense. And we have selected the word lay. Now, lay, you have to really understand the definition, and we went over that because this is a huge confusable with the word lie. And so, but this lay, you have to understand the definition. It means it's a burden, into contact, an accusation. The reason why you really need to understand the meaning of this word is because this word means something completely different in a different tense. And I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to confuse you with this particular word for right here. Now, lay, we are talking about the simple tense. It's sitting in the present when you have just lay all by itself. And then the simple progressive would be laying, L-A-Y-I-N-G, for it to be in the progressive tense. So we have the simple tense, lay. Now we're talking about our perfect tense for you to understand with the irregular verbs. So the simple past is laid, and the past participle, which sits you in the perfect tense, is laid also. So these two are the same word, which makes it so much easier when you have the same word. I've changed these up a little bit. Let's look at the simple tense right here. Simple tense. We're going to talk about the present tense for all of these. So we have the simple, the progressive, and the perfect. So you have to use the correct verbiage for you to understand how to use this. So then the simple, I went plural. So all of these are in the plural. And plural is easier than in singular. So we have we lay. We lay the burden. You lay the burden. Paul and Daniel lay the burden. See, nothing changes. We just use this. It's all plural. That is the plural subject, plural verb, plural subject, plural verb, plural subject, and the plural verb. So now let's look at the progressive. We are, now you're using the present tense auxiliary verb for the progressive, which are am, are, and is, right? And then you're using the word laying. Now we're going to take this word and you're going to add your ing. We are laying the burden. Present tense, you have to use are with your ing. You are laying the burden. Daniel and Paul are laying the burden. Now let's talk about the perfect tense. Now in the present, you have to use the correct auxiliary verb as have. The present tense, it's plural, so we're taking the plural verb of have. Plural makes plural. We have laid the burden. You have laid the burden. Daniel and Paul have laid the burden. First person, second person, and third person. So you need to make sure you get your persons correct. We is first person, you is second person, and Daniel and Paul are sitting in third person. Now let's look at the past tense, boys. Past tense. So the simple past, what do we use in the simple past? Laid. So you have to use that. We laid the burden. You laid the burden. Daniel and Paul laid the burden. We don't have to worry about any plural s adding on to the verb or anything like that when you're in the past like this. You have to worry about it when you're in the present with your auxiliary verbs, the past, and when you're in the plural. Plural is so much easier than the singular. Now we're sitting in the past progressive, so we want to say we were laying the burden. You were laying the burden. Daniel and Paul were laying the burden. Now look, past perfect. So what do we have to use if we're doing the perfect? Had. The past participle. And we have to use had. What Daniel said. We had. So had laid. We had laid the burden. You had laid the burden. Daniel and Paul had laid the burden. That's how that works. So now if we look in the future tense, future simple, we just add the word will to our simple tense verb. So we will lay the burden, you will lay the burden, Daniel and Paul will lay the burden. So future progressive, What are we gonna do? You need the auxiliary verbs will be, and then you use your ing, add it on to your simple tense, your base word. This is the base word, ing right here. I'll be laying the burden. You will be laying the burden. Daniel and Paul will be laying the burden. Now, future perfect. Which one are we going to do? Thank you, Daniel. Which one are we going to do? Laid, right? And you have to use will have. We will have laid the burden. You will have laid the burden. Daniel and Paul will have laid the burden. So make sure that when you are in the perfect, you have to use the past participle. When you are sitting in the past tense, you need to use your simple past as laid, right there, when you're using simple. So that's where it's really confusing. So let's look at down here. We have simple is just lay. Your progressive is your proper helping verb plus laying. Your perfect is the proper helping verb plus laid. And then in your simple past, you just use laid. You do not need a helping verb when you're in the simple past. Now the simple past and the perfect are the same verbs in word lay. Everybody, we'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.